"Mother Helena, you really should get more rest," Richard said, placing the teacup in front of me with that concerned smile I'd learned to hate. "You're looking pale lately. Are you feeling all right?" I wrapped my trembling hands around the warm porcelain. Not from cold, not from age, from pure, crystalline rage. "I'm fine, Richard," I replied softly. "Just tired." He nodded, satisfied, and left my sitting room. I waited until I heard his footsteps fade down the hallway. Then I poured the tea into the planter beside my chair, the same planter I'd been using for 6 months. The orchid inside had died 3 weeks ago. That's when I finally understood. My daughter's husband wasn't just making me sick. He was trying to make me dead. But what Richard doesn't know could fill a textbook. Actually, it does fill a textbook, one I wrote in 1987, Toxic Compounds in Common Garden Plants. And tonight, while he sleeps peacefully in my daughter's bed, I'll be planting something special in his vegetable garden. My name is Dr. Helena Winters. I'm 71 years old. I've been a widow for 3 years, and for the past 6 months, I've been slowly dying. It started small, tremors in my hands, blurred vision, a racing heartbeat the doctor blamed on anxiety. "It's normal at your age, Mrs. Winters," he'd said with that condescending pat on my hand. "Perhaps some medication for the nerves." I took the pills. The symptoms got worse. Then I collapsed in my garden, my sanctuary, where I'd spent 40 years studying poisonous plants. The hospital ran tests. Everything came back inconclusive. Age-related episodes, they said. Perhaps early cognitive decline. Those words haunted me for weeks. Sarah, my daughter, moved in to take care of me. She brought Richard with her, her husband of 5 years, the man who'd swept her off her feet with charm and promises. I never liked Richard. Something about him was too smooth, too practiced. But Sarah loved him, and after losing her father, she needed stability. So I smiled. I welcomed him. I pretended not to notice how his eyes lingered on the antique furniture, how he asked casual questions about my will. "You should update it, Mother Helena," he'd said. "Make sure everything is in order. For Sarah's sake. For Sarah's sake. Always for Sarah's sake." That's when the tea ritual began. Every evening at exactly 9 p.m., Richard brought me chamomile tea with honey. "It'll help you sleep," he'd say. "You need your rest," and I drank it because I trusted him until the orchid died. I'm a botanist. I've been one for 46 years. I earned my PhD studying toxic alkaloids in common garden plants. I've published 17 papers. I've consulted on 3 murder cases involving plant poisons. I know death when I see it growing. That orchid didn't die from neglect. It died from poison. I stopped drinking the tea. Instead, I poured it into the planter every night. Within a week, 2 more plants withered. Within 2 weeks, the soil turned an odd gray-brown. Arsenic contamination. I took a soil sample to my old colleague, Dr. Marcus Chen. I didn't tell him where it came from. The results came back 3 days later. Arsenic trioxide. Precisely measured doses. Small enough not to trigger immediate symptoms, but large enough to accumulate over time. The kind of poisoning that mimics natural decline. I sat in Marcus's office, staring at the report, and felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. I felt alive, furiously, dangerously alive. I went home and watched Richard prepare my tea, watched his hands add the honey, stirring exactly 7 times, always 7. He brought it with that smile. "Here you go, Mother Helena. Drink up." "Thank you, Richard," I said. "You're so good to me," and I meant it. He'd been good at nearly killing me. That night, I went to my library and pulled down my own book, Toxic Compounds in Common Garden Plants, a comprehensive study. I opened to Chapter 7, Delayed Action Toxins in Ornamental Species, and I began to plan Richard's garden. The next morning, I made myself breakfast. My hands were steadier than they'd been in months. Richard came down at 7:30 in his expensive suit. He worked as a financial advisor, ironic considering how poorly he'd calculated his own risk assessment. "Good morning, Mother Helena. You're up early." Couldn't sleep, too much on my mind. "Still worrying about those episodes?" He sat across from me. "I've been thinking. Maybe it's time we talked about your living situation. This house is very large for one person." There it was. My living situation? Maybe something smaller, more managed. "There's a wonderful assisted living facility. When were you planning to move in?" I interrupted gently. "After I'm gone or before?" Richard froze. "I'm sorry? Into this house. Were you planning to wait until I died naturally, or were you hoping to speed things along?" The silence was exquisite. "Mother Helena, I don't know what you're implying, but these paranoid thoughts are concerning morning, the tea, I said quietly. 9 p.m. every night, chamomile with honey. Always 7 stirs. Arsenic trioxide. Small doses. Brilliant, really. His face went very still. Any doctor would attribute it to natural causes in a woman my age, I continued. The only question is, how long have you been planning this? He stood slowly. You're confused. I wrote my dissertation on arsenic poisoning. Richard, the confusion you're seeing is clarity. I need to go to work. We'll discuss this when you're more rational. After he left, Sarah came into the kitchen, worried. Mom, Richard says you've been having paranoid thoughts? I looked at my daughter and knew I couldn't tell her. Not yet. Not until I had proof so irrefutable that even love couldn't deny it. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired. After she left for work, I went to my garden. 2 acres of carefully cultivated beauty, and in the far corner, behind the trellis, my special collection, Aconitum napellus, wolfsbane, contains aconitine, one of the most potent toxins known, digitalis purpurea, foxglove. Contains digitalin that causes cardiac arrest in slightly wrong doses, atropa belladonna, deadly nightshade, atropine that shuts down the nervous system, conium maculatum, hemlock, the plant that killed Socrates. I'd spent 40 years studying these plants. I knew their secrets. I knew exactly how much would produce specific symptoms. I knew which combinations mimicked natural diseases. I knew how to make death look like an accident. I went to my shed and opened my research journal. Subject, Richard Thornton, age 38. Weight 180 pounds. Objective, demonstrate consequences of attempted murder through botanical education. Method, environmental exposure. Timeline, 90 days. I wasn't going to kill Richard, that would be murder. I was simply going to teach him about consequences. Richard had a routine. Every evening at 7, he worked in the vegetable garden he'd planted. Tomatoes, cucumbers, herbs. He was very proud of it. Growing our own food, he'd told Sarah. It's healthier. I watched him from my window. Watched him touch every plant with bare hands. Watched him wipe sweat from his face with those same hands. And I began my lessons. The first was subtle. I waited until Richard and Sarah went out for dinner. Then I harvested leaves from my toxicodendron radicans, poison ivy. I ground them into powder, mixed with a binding agent, and painted it onto the undersides of his tomato leaves. The next morning, he worked in his garden as usual. Within 12 hours, he was scratching his arms. Within 24, he had raised welts across his forearms and neck. Plant allergy, the doctor said. Sometimes people develop sensitivities. Richard started wearing gloves. I moved to phase 2. Digitalis purpurea, foxglove, has leaves that, dried and crushed, become nearly invisible powder containing digitalin, a cardiac glycoside. I sprinkled it around his plants, mixed into the mulch. Every time he watered, it became airborne. Every time he bent close, he inhaled microscopic particles. Not enough to kill, just enough to cause irregular heartbeat, shortness of breath, dizziness. Within 2 weeks, Richard complained of palpitations. Stress, the doctor said. Take it easy. Richard started resting more, which was exactly what I needed. Phase 3 required access to his personal space. I convinced Sarah to visit her cousin in Chicago. You need a break, sweetheart. Richard will be here if anything happens. The moment she left, I went to work. Atropa belladonna produces atropine. In small doses, it causes hallucinations, confusion, paranoia. I made a diluted tincture and added it to Richard's coffee grounds. He never noticed the slight bitterness. Within a week, Richard had trouble sleeping. He saw shadows in his peripheral vision. Must be stress, he told me. Perhaps cut back on caffeine, I suggested, but he didn't. He was addicted to his routine. By the time Sarah returned, Richard had developed a tremor, dark circles under his eyes. Weight loss. You look exhausted, Sarah told him. See a specialist. I'm fine, just need rest. But he wasn't fine. Meanwhile, I did something calculated. I started drinking the tea again. Richard watched me, surprised. You're drinking it? Of course. Why wouldn't I? I'd built up tolerance. Mithridatism, making yourself poison-proof through gradual exposure. I've been dosing myself carefully for weeks because I needed evidence. That night, I heard Richard in the kitchen after midnight. I recorded him on my phone. 3 minutes of clear footage showing him measuring white powder into a container labeled Mother Helena's Special blend. I sent the video to Marcus Chen. Please analyze this. His response: Helena, this is attempted murder. Call the police. But I didn't, because Richard had tried to kill me over months, slowly, painfully. I wanted him to experience the same thing. Richard's health declined rapidly over the next 2 weeks. The cardiac issues worsened. The hallucinations increased. He lost more weight. Sarah grew distant from him. She'd found text messages on his phone to someone named Jennifer. After the old lady finally goes, my daughter wasn't stupid. She was beginning to question, so I gave her the key. Sarah, in my desk is a key to my safe deposit box. Inside is a journal. If anything happens to me, anything, read it. She looked alarmed. Mom, just a precaution. In that journal, I documented everything. Every symptom, every poison tea, the lab results, the video, my observations of Richard's deteriorating health, everything. It was my insurance policy. That night, Richard's health took a dramatic turn. He woke at 2 a.m. with severe abdominal pain. By 4 a.m., Sarah was driving him to the emergency room. Ricinus communis, castor bean, contains ricin. In very small amounts, properly prepared, it causes severe gastric distress without permanent damage. I'd ground a single seed and added it to his basil plant. He'd harvested it yesterday, made himself a salad. The doctors ran every test. They found inflammation, elevated white blood cells, signs of poisoning, but couldn't identify the source. Have you eaten anything unusual? Nothing. Just food from home? From your garden? A sharp young resident asked. Richard hesitated. Yes. What kind of plants? Tomatoes, cucumbers, herbs. The resident's eyes sharpened. Which herbs? Basil, oregano, thyme. She excused herself and returned with a toxicology reference. Sir, your symptoms are consistent with exposure to several botanical toxins. Poison ivy resin, cardiac glycosides, atropine alkaloids, possibly ricin. The room went quiet. Someone poisoned my garden? Or you've been working with toxic plants without realizing it. Do you have botanical knowledge? Sarah's phone rang. Me, calling from home. Mom, Richard's in the hospital. They think he's been exposed to plant toxins. Oh my, how awful. Do they know how? They think maybe his garden. She stopped. Mom, you have toxic plants in your garden. I do, for research. All labeled and secured. Richard's been working in your garden. He said he was helping you. Has he? How kind, though I wish he'd asked first. Many of my specimens are quite dangerous if handled improperly. Silence. Mom, what plants does Richard have access to? He has keys to the house he could access anywhere. Why? The doctors say multiple toxins, different plants. Not just one exposure. How strange. Almost as if someone who didn't understand botanical safety was experimenting. Sarah's breathing changed. Has Richard been in your research area? I don't know. I'm often in bed early. But I did notice some specimens had been disturbed. What specimens? Wolfsbane, foxglove, hemlock, deadly nightshade. All clearly labeled with warnings. Jesus Christ. Sarah whispered. Sarah, is something wrong? I need to go. Sarah came home 3 hours later. She looked exhausted, frightened, angry. Mom, I need you to tell me the truth. Did you do this? I set down my book. Sarah, do you remember when you were 7 and asked why I studied poisonous plants? You said the most dangerous things are often the most beautiful, and that knowledge is protection. Understanding how things kill means understanding how to defend yourself. I stood slowly. I need you to go to my safe deposit box. Read the journal, all of it. Then come back and ask me that question again. Mom, please, read it first. She left. I went to my garden, midnight, when the garden looks most beautiful. Moonlight on wolfsbane, foxglove standing like sentinels, belladonna reflecting silver light. I heard footsteps. Sarah stopped beside me, journal in hand. You knew the whole time. Not at first. It took months to realize. And then she gestured at the garden. You used your research to make him sick. I exposed him to the same things he'd been exposing me to. Knowledge, consequence. You could have called the police. With what evidence? By the time anyone believed me, I'd be in assisted living and Richard would own this house. Sarah sat heavily on the bench. He was trying to kill you. Yes, for the inheritance. Yes. And I didn't see it. Tears streamed down her face. I thought he was being kind. I sat beside her. He was very good at pretending. What happens now? That depends on him. Right now, doctors think he was careless in my garden. If he's smart, he'll recover quietly and leave. If not, I have enough evidence to put him in prison for attempted murder. But what you did, I never touched him. I maintained my garden. If Richard chose to enter restricted areas and expose himself to toxins, that was his decision. Sarah laughed, broken, hysterical. You're terrifying. No, I'm just very good at what I do. We sat in silence. What do I do now? What do you want to do? Leave him. Never see him again. Then do that. He married you to access our family. You owe him nothing. He'll tell people what you did. Let him. Let him tell everyone he was poisoned by a 71-year-old woman's garden after spending months trying to poison her. Sarah started laughing. You really are terrifying. I'm a mother protecting her family. There's nothing more dangerous than that. Richard was released 5 days later. He never came back to our house. Sarah filed for divorce 2 weeks later. It was swift and brutal. Richard got nothing. He tried to make accusations, but all anyone found was a legally maintained collection of labeled toxic specimens and a foolish man who'd been careless. The video of him contaminating my tea, however, was very clear. His lawyers advised him to take the settlement and leave. He did. I heard he moved to another state. Married a wealthy widow. I sent her a package. My book, with a note, "Knowledge is protection. Stay safe." 3 months later, she left him after finding him researching life insurance policies. As for me, I'm still in my house, still in my garden, still studying the beautiful, deadly things that grow in the dark. Sarah visits twice a week. We have tea together, real tea, the kind that heals. She started taking botanical illustration classes. She wants to document my collection. Before the knowledge is lost, she tells me. I think she means before I'm gone. But I'm not going anywhere, not for a very long time, because revenge isn't a dish best served cold. Revenge is a garden, carefully cultivated, patiently watered, and mine is still growing. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.